Welcome to Laid Back Law with your favorite lawyers from around the interwebs, discussing the most pressing of topics every Friday at noon Eastern Time.
All right, welcome to Legal Friday on Laid Back Law, which is so laid back that not everybody has shown up yet. But we do have the illustrious Ron Coleman, and it's awesome. We could spend a few minutes together and talk ahead of time. When Viva gets here, he also has been there, but I've actually appeared on Tim Pool, and you're almost a semi-regular. I swear you've been on Tim Pool probably at least half dozen times.
It feels that way, but I think it's three or four.
3 or 4. Okay.
3 with Tim, and once he got sick, and so I was on with Seamus. But I'm also a friend of Tim's, and I'm not representing him on anything right now. Though we have discussed many things many times, and obviously I wouldn't violate his trust, but people think he's being naive. He's not naive. Tim is never naive. In fact, he knows what he's doing.
Well, I know business-wise, in terms of building a little empire, he has done a remarkable job. Part of the reason it was awesome to go on the show was not only the exposure of going on the show, but to get a chance to see the operation that he has running. Going to, this is the old compound or whatever, which is really a giant house. People call a giant house a compound when they want to.
Well, no, I call it a compound. I think it is fair to call it a compound because you have the house, but you also have land around it, and you have the battlement wall that he had set up there. There's a gate that you have to get through, and there are other, outbuildings. Hey, how you doing,
Ron? How goes the battle?
Let me tell you. Which means that's my way of saying I'm not going to tell you.
No, I was waiting for the oi. Let's not talk about the kids. Okay, hold on. Am I on the good mic? Mic check 1.
You are on the good mic. You are on the good mic.
And I got these good headphones, Eric. I don't know what they are. They're Sony something or other.
See, I give this guy headphones.
They were so good.
Garbage. He just throws them away.
They're still here. They're just they give me pressure pains, and I don't know if my ears have gotten bigger or the headphones shrunk.
I know. Maybe you're like Robert De Niro. Somebody did a meme of that showing that, ears increase by 2 millimeters a year or what have you. And he has like a normal ear in Taxi Cab, or almost a small ear. And now it's like the size of the, half of his head.
Noses also. It's gravity. When I was growing up, I didn't think of myself as a guy with a nose. But I am now. I know that.
It is. Look, I just Googled it. It says your ears don't grow throughout your entire life, but they do change shape and appear to grow as you age. Your feet get bigger. That much I know. With the that dog. Hold on.
Well, we're sharing that information. Anyway, okay. So you were just talking about
Tim.
Tim Pool. He's a friend. Everything else. I'm going to start off with David. You shared this clip earlier, so I figure why not?
Oh God, that's funny. Yeah, Barnes is
lunch. Well, this is from Bourbon with Barnes, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Oh, one other little tangent on the Russia thing. If this was really an RT effort, it would have been much more sophisticated, much more creative, much more innovative, and they would have targeted a whole different set of people. Lauren Chan's never been geopolitically savvy, nor followed for her geopolitics. Tim Pool, in the few instances he gets off a fence, which isn't all that common, let's be honest. He's been anti-Russian most of the time he's been on there. It took him a while to even second guess the Ukrainian war. The Benny Johnson, I like Benny's okay, but you're not going to look to him for geopolitics. And once again, not someone who's ever been pro-Putin or Russia. Dave Urban, same thing. He's a libertarian war skeptic, but there again, not aligned on those issues. So those wouldn't have been the people they pitched anyway. The other giveaway that it was a spook operation, they stayed away from the people who would have smelled it, smoked it out really fast. So, like, for example, if you were really, even if you wanted to set this up as someone that's pro-Russian, if you were a spook operation that had confidence you wouldn't get caught, then you'd reach out to people like me and Viva, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't, because it would have smelled it 10 miles away.
Now, I'm going to push back on that a little bit because I was looking earlier and I don't have confirmation, and I know that your partner, Barnes, is not a fan of Sebastian Gorka.
He is definitively not a fan of Sebastian Gorka.
I think he's made that really clear. Now, Sebastian Gorka released a tweet earlier. I'd have to go find it to pull it up, but saying, hey, I was offered this deal and it stank. It stank to high heaven. I chose not to do this deal. It is weird. The quartering sniffed out or claimed in his video. Now, this is Monday morning quarterbacking. He didn't get offered a deal, but he said he questioned who the hell is this company? Who's Tenet Media? What's going on here? And I will confess myself, I did wonder who the hell Tenet Media was, because it was sort of a confusing timeline, and I might not get it right. Tim Pool had like Timcast News and Tim Pool as his channels, and then he added Timcast IRL. Then, I don't know, it's like last summer in 2023, thereabouts, suddenly he said, you know what, I'm changing my second channel. So he had Timcast News, I think, and Tim Pool, and he changed Tim Pool to become The Culture War.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden, because I went looking for somebody I knew who was going to be on there or whatever, and it wasn't on Tim Pool's channel. It was on, how do I put it? It was on.
He swung out like another.
Yeah, it was suddenly on this Tenet Media thing. And that was sort of confusing to me. But where I'm going is, it does seem a little sus. I'm just saying, if you look at the number of views, I think they're averaging 2 million views a month. And 2 million views a month, that's better than I'm getting. I'd love to get 2 million views a month. However, with a payroll of $400,000 a month for Ruben, $400,000 a month for Tim Pool, $400,000 a month for Benny Johnson. I don't know what Matt Christensen was paid or whatever. We're talking just the three there. That's $1.2 million a month for approximately $20,000 of YouTube revenue in AdSense if you use a $5 per video thing. Shouldn't that cause a little bit of concern?
Well, but on whose, ask you this question, on whose end? Like, where do you think that concern would materialize?
Well, I would start to be worried myself. Like, there's a part of me that says, give me some Russian bucks, please.
Well, but, if you're in Tenet Media, would you be concerned? If you're the commentators being paid by a platform,
I'd be very concerned. Well, I personally would be. Absolutely, I would be. You know why? Because I am putting content out there. I know I'm getting paid a lot of money, and I have shit views. I would be concerned about my reputation. I would be concerned that I'm not delivering on this extremely high amount of money for my product.
Yeah. I know. Ari Jacob just said in the chat, the numbers don't back out. The numbers are insane. The numbers are so insane that I don't understand. I mean, wouldn't you think that these deals would be attractive to guys like this, even at half
or a quarter?
Right? Yeah, I take a quarter. I'll take it. $25,000 a week.
$100,000 a month. $100,000 a month would feel a whole lot better than
$100,000 a week. That's like Joe Rogan kind of money, isn't it?
First of all, I would have the same reflexes in that when I look at Rachel Maddow, and I've said it, $20 million a year is not a salary for Rachel. It's to buy her so that she promotes pharma messaging. She's a pharma shill for 20 million. They're buying her, not trying to pick her brain. There's a number between, let's say 20 million a year, I'd say you're being bought off. 20,000 a month, I would say you're not being bought off. Somewhere in the middle, you can have the gray zone discussion. The issue here, though, is from the allegations of the indictment, fine, the numbers are astronomical for most people. On the content creator's perspective, it's not their not that their business, it's not really their concern in the long run if this company doesn't ever become profitable. From a startup perspective, you have to buy talent and you have to invest in the future in order to get the big names and the talent. And whether or not it pans out, a lot of startups that take a lot of seed financing don't materialize. So between 20 million a year and 20,000 a month, there's ownership, and then they're creating the content as per the indictment that had no oversight or editorial control anyhow. So from their perspective, I would be a little bit weary about getting paid more than I think I'm worth. Or, but they probably don't think that that's more than what they were worth based on their other stuff. I mean, I don't know what they're making elsewhere in life, but I think it's commensurate with that.
Well, it might be, but the ask was where was the ask? I mean, for that kind of money, you would expect editorial control, and you'd expect volume of content that we're not seeing here.
Yeah, you would have to also talk about the amount of views you're getting. You know, I understand you're starting out, but they were out for a while, and if you're paying me 100,000 for video with no view guarantee, and I'm only getting 8,000 views on my video, it's like, really, like, are you really paying me for that video? Or are you paying me just to be, you know, it's like
well, no, but finish that thought. Are you paying me for that video, or are you paying me for me to say what you want me to say?
No, I'm not. I'm sorry. Let me finish that thought. Not for you to say, are you paying me just to be a part of this project, or are you paying me for the video? That's what I was going to say.
No,
I like yours better though.
No, but or are they paying you for your face so that they can try to build up the new company as?
In fairness, if I'm going to steel man it, and you know, because I talked to Nate earlier, if I tried to steel man it the way, because this is a con, it appears. Whomever it is, be it Russia or a deep state operation, however you break it down, these people were duped, it appears. Now,
well, you got to be careful here. Who's these people were duped?
I'm saying that Tim Pool was duped. The indictment said that Tim Pool and them were duped.
Yeah. The indictment says that they were duped. If you're operating on the basis the indictment is a good faith, clean indictment and not there to deliberately smear everyone involved.
So are you saying Tim Pool wasn't duped? Because I think that helps his argument.
No,
I'm saying Tim Pool's saying he was duped.
Well, I know Tim Pool's saying he was duped, and I think that he might be getting led down that hole to say, oh, Tim, you're the victim here, and we just want to talk to you from the FBI because you're the victim of a crime, so let's sit down and hear what you have to say. I think Tim might be getting wooed into the victim side to talk with the FBI, who will then use that against him in the future.
Okay, hold on. Let me just clarify all this and get some really clear thought. Because, okay, do we agree there's an indictment?
There's an indictment.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Do we agree that the indictment says that people were duped?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Do we think it's possible that Tim Pool was duped? Again, no matter the source of this operation, would you agree that there's some sort of operation being represented here, be it from Russia or be it a deep state like Barnes is implying?
Yeah, well, but
it's an operation, correct?
I would argue it's a deep state operation, and part of that deep state operation is to depict these big names as having been duped. What were they duped into? Like, what were they duped into? As per the indictment.
So as per the indictment, the way it runs out is Russia Today, which is backed, Russian media, which is backed. For them to pay for these political ads, they would have had to do two things. Number one, they would have just had to come from a direct account, and number two, they would have had to file under FARA. So now these two Russian operatives for Russia Today are being charged with those two crimes: money laundering, because they funneled the money through the United Arab Emirates, Turkey, blah, blah, blah. They already had the list of bank accounts, and that's how they got the money to these two Russian operatives, who then gave the money to Tenet Media. And Tenet Media, 90% of Tenet Media, as the indictment says, I can pull up the thing, was coming from this one source, these two Russian operatives. So the argument is that if this was all legit, you would have had just a direct correction. They would have filed the paperwork with FARA. Instead, they went through this back way, laundered the money, so you got the money laundering charge, and then two, didn't register as foreign agents.
Yeah,
they were getting paid by a foreign government to push a particular message.
But there was no message being pushed. That's even in the indictment. So you're saying they got duped into what? Creating the content that they wanted to create with no editorial oversight for handsome payment?
All right. So
what did they get?
Just to be clear, the argument would be is that if you're a small creator who doesn't really have a lot of reach and don't know any money, then yeah, if you can do your thing and nobody, and if you're saying what I want you to say, I'm giving you money, and now if you're making $5 a month and I'm now giving you $100,000 a month, that in itself would give you greater reach. Now you have more resources. You have to do this.
Okay,
this.
but you're
So I think that's the argument.
But you're not describing Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, or Dave Rubin in this. They already had a reach. Tim Pool already had his show. This is not. When you say that he was duped, it means that he was duped into doing something unwitting that he wouldn't have otherwise done. He wasn't duped into any pro-Russian messaging.
No. But hold on. I don't think that Tim Pool would want to accept laundered money. I really don't think so. I think that, well, whatever you want, the money exchange is very sketchy if true. And I'm not saying that Tim Pool's duped into a message or not a message. I think Tim Pool has a lot of self-respect, and I think that he would be very concerned if he was getting money that was dirty.
Okay, so now
is that a fair thing?
Now we're starting to pin down that egg a little bit. He was duped to a contract that he otherwise wouldn't have necessarily engaged in if he knew where the sources of the revenue were coming from.
Yes, that's what Tim Pool.
That's literally what it says.
No. Fine. Let's operate on that basis. That if it turns out if it turns out that this is laundered money,
what they're alleged,
would he have entered into that contract?
And he says no.
I presume he's going to say no. Nobody would say I'm going to accept the fruits of money laundering or criminal activity. And then the question becomes: is it laundered money? Is it Russian money that is being funneled in here for whatever the purpose? Because there's a suggestion of a political purpose for this, even though the indictment says that there was no control over the messaging. It was just to broadly sow discord, whatever the hell that means.
Right. Well, it would be kind of like this. Hold on. Let me get back to the steel man, because I never finished that. You could steel man the argument that Tim Pool was tricked and the others were tricked because of the quote Grigori, billionaire, Grigorian, whatever, billionaire. Now, I think what was going on, if this is the case, is Lauren Chen and her husband were selling this to be like Tenet Media is another Daily Wire. Those who've been around for a long time know that the Daily Wire was funded to begin with by a Texas billionaire family. I forgot the name of it, but I think they're tied to Ted Cruz, helped fund some of Ted Cruz's presidential campaign. And again, if there's a billionaire, they do have the ability to throw some money at a project if they want it. The Koch brothers, all down the line, don't always earn back when they're doing political statements. So I think that in their defense, to steel man the argument, I'm wondering if they got lulled into the idea of, hey, we got a billionaire who's going to create the next Daily Wire. They're both in Tennessee. Keep that in mind, too. So it's got this nice little rhythm going to it. So I just wanted to put that out there as a steel man point if anybody has considered that.
Well, that is. Sorry, go for it, Nate.
No, go ahead, because you had a point.
That is the argument, that the issue where it's going to be where there's going to be questions to be answered, or at least questions to be asked, is what was Tenet Media Lauren's understanding of this financing that was coming in? It's the allegation in the indictment is that these employees were RT employees, and thus suggesting that they were acting in their capacity as RT employees and not potentially totally independent business people who also seem to work, might work at RT. So there's a lot of connections that are being connected in that indictment. The bottom line, I would if I'm asking the questions for Tenet Media and Lauren Chen, like, where is this money coming from? Who are these people? What do they expect back for the return of their 10 million? But if you're Rubin and you're Tim Pool and you're the other guys, it's a damn good contract, no guarantees whatsoever. And you're contracting with Tenet Media. You've sort of asked for your due diligence on who's financing it, and you've gotten some, turns out to be, fake profile accounts.
Well, hold on. Your due diligence. You got a Russian billionaire that you can just Google his name and find out he doesn't. Like, really, you could Google his name. This guy doesn't exist.
They did Google his name, though. They did Google his name.
And even when they sent them a resume, and they were like, okay, it's good. As a matter of fact, the only thing they actually argued about on the resume was that it had social justice something on the resume, and that bothered them a little bit.
Can you bring up David Moore's chat there? I mean, I don't know if it's meant to be tongue in cheek, but this is the wonderful thing that they all This is the wonderful thing about it now. Oh, now FARA means that if I'm living in America, paying taxes in America, that I have to register as a foreign agent to commentate on politics. Does everybody know what the Foreign Agent Registration Act is supposed to be about? If I'm acting for a government, this is the idiocy of what people are going to draw from this indictment now.
I think David Moore. I might be reading this differently. I think his point is in defense of these commentators, that it's like you have international people who jump in. That does, just because someone's not American doesn't necessarily make them a nefarious actor. I don't think he's attacking you. I think he's making the point through you.
He might be, but there are other people out there legit saying, well, look, Lauren Chen's a Canadian. She had this is clearly foreign interference, as if they totally misunderstand what FARA is about. And anyway, the bottom line, there's no question that they would have probably not entered into the contract if they knew definitively the money is coming from laundered sources. No question. I have a feeling this money is actually coming from CIA operatives, and that was the actual honeypot in all of this, which is why I would be very skeptical about being paid too much or anything. Like, once you start taking money from people, you better make sure you know who they are, and to some reasonable degree.
All right, hold on, Diva. You've made a hell of a accusation. You said these were, so the Justice Department in their indictment says, okay, here are the places where this money supposedly come from. They kind of list them all out.
Places.
So no, but I'm trying to understand, like, so you're saying that money is CIA money? Like what? No. I'm not saying where you getting that from?
You did say that. You did say that.
Yeah, you said that. I know where you might have CIA money. So I'm like, all right, where you getting that from? Is it an indictment? Is it personal information? Like,
no, Nate, let's not be. Has the CIA ever done that in the past?
Sure.
But they have.
Okay, good. All right. Has the CIA ever lied about Russia investigations in the past?
But Viva,
they have. So you can just make it up. Yeah. You're making a very specific claim. I'm saying you may be right. They've done it in the past. So you said the CIA money, and I said, okay, where are you getting that from? And now you say, well, they've done it in the past. Like, that's some type of defeat. I'm just saying, where are you getting your information from? It's an innocent question.
Don't confuse a theory with information. I'm saying, before I'm going to get this indictment, I'm going to say it's as plausible, given the past is prologue, past behavior as recently as 8 years, that you think I'm going to trust this indictment and say, oh, there's a mystery millionaire financier shipping money from all spots of the world. Oh, yeah, you know what that sounds like? Exactly the same thing the CIA has done in the past to do exactly this. And you think, oh, well, they've done it before. They lied in 2016, but I'm going to go ahead and take this indictment hook, line, and sinker. Congrats, you've learned nothing from the past.
Yeah, and the timing especially is just incredibly sus. The timing is to support Viva's point here. The timing is incredibly sus. That this is the perfect time. This is the perfect time to try and get as many voices, conservative voices, who might have added credibility to refute legacy media's perspectives and have doubt thrown upon them that they know what they're talking about, that they're talking to with any kind of sincerity, and that they're not actually puppets of Putin. So this is the perfect time to try and portray, which, by the way, through it actually affects all of us who talk about politics, that we're all, for all anyone the public knows, we might also be shills of Putin. And
I want my Russia bucks. I want my Russia bucks. Come on, give me Russia bucks. I'll talk about them all day.
You can understand. What I'm saying is, that's what I'm saying. The timing of this is incredibly sus.
Okay.
That being said, if you go through the charges, it is fact rich in ways that shocked me. It is fact rich in ways that made me question how the heck they actually know this much detail about facts. That they know like every conversation Lauren Chen had.
They were inside Lauren Chen's phone.
Yes, they have the discords. They have they know. And listen, it could have been the googly gops from the moon. Who knows, right? But the only thing I know is that from this indictment, it really lays out a clear picture of what happened. And I don't believe Tim Pool or any of them knew this. I think that when you read through the documents, it's clear what happened. Russia said, these people are saying what we want them to say. we want to pay them to incentivize them to keep saying that particular thing. When you look at the Discord messages between Lauren Chen and the Russian agents, it was clear that they were pushing a one-way direction, and they weren't telling them what to say, but they were funding them to say what we like them to say. And I'll just be honest with you. If I work for Viva and Barnes, right, and you guys are paying me, I'm not coming out here talking about vote for Harris, vote for blah, blah, blah. Even though you're not telling me, I know what side of the aisle I should be speaking about. Now, if you're paying me $100,000 for a video that only makes 8,000 views, that pressure is going to be pretty powerful stuff. That check is going to be pretty powerful stuff. And they know, and right now, I just want to make it very clear for everybody. None of those conservative commentators are denying any of this is true. None of them are saying this is not, they're saying they are victims of this scam. So the only people who have any questions about it are us theorizing now. But even the people who are involved in it are saying this is not, none of this is true. We were scammed by Russia.
How long do you think Lauren Chen has been a cooperating witness?
She's been,
because I will bet you that she, who is not named in that, or her company not named in the indictment, part of the reason they probably have everything is if they track the money, all they have to do is track the money getting to her and then drop the hammer saying, you got this money, this money, this money, you're not Farah. And she could have been in on every conversation, every Discord chat. She could have had knowledge that they were tapping her phone. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where's the criminal people here?
It's in the indictment. Listen, let's just be clear. This indictment could easily be against Lauren Chen and her husband, right? This indictment could be, and the reason why we don't see their names in this indictment is, I'm just going to say likely, they flipped. They are cooperating witnesses because you know what the FBI probably did before they laid this indictment out? We have the Discords, we have your messages, we have all of this. Here it is. Here it is. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And they're facing 20 years in prison, and they probably flipped. That's why Lauren Chen probably hasn't said anything yet.
Well, I got to go live on my channel. If only I could splice these two together for the next half hour and we can do this. But I've got, what's his name? Now?
Just stream it to your own audience. You can do it right here.
Well, no, hold on 1 second. But I need to know. It needs to go to Rumble, Viva Barnes Law, and Twitter. So I can't do that unless I can do window and window.
No, you could do it. Just add them as destinations.
No, because I've already set my stream up. I'm not creating a new link.
Oh, okay.
Maybe there's a. It's showtime. I've got. Hold on. I just want to make sure I get the guy's name right because I can't. I want to say. Yeah, it's Taylor Hanson. Why do I think Taylor Hanson is a band? Taylor Hanson is a former employee of Tenet. He's going to be on by give or take 1 o'clock. So, I got to pop out. But no, I'd say if anybody's actually reading this indictment and not only not giving it the benefit of the doubt, but not treating it as though it's a lie on its face, you've learned nothing over the last 8 years. And you want to talk about suspicious timing? Yeah, 2 days after they find a Chinese spy in Hochul's government. 3 days after Tim Pool says he's going to sue Kamala Harris for defamation. And this indictment, sorry. Oh, Ron, you're on mute, Ron.
They did not put this indictment together in 2 days.
No, that much is true. They didn't put it together in 2 days. They put it together long before and released it 2 months before the election, which is even worse, Ron. So I set you up for a lose-lose there. All right. I'm bowing out, guys. Have a good one.
Later, brother.
All right.
Now that he's gone, I'm going to tell you why he's wrong.
Hold on. Well, yeah, definitely. Hold that thought. Anyway, Susan here points out Laura Chen deletes her YouTube channel. I think that YouTube eradicated Tenet Media and Lauren Chen's channel, from what I understand, and we can talk about that after a bit. But
wow,
they're gone from YouTube but they essentially. I believe I know for a fact. I believe beyond reasonable doubt that Lauren Chen, that the government is working with Lauren Chen and her husband. They have to be, from this information, from everything they said, and for them not being listed in the indictment, and the fact that they can be charged with the exact same crimes as these Russians. I just don't see how you get around.
And Blaze fired her too.
Yeah, Blaze fired her. That news came out yesterday.
Unmute yourself, Ron. Oh.
No, that was just me actually mouthing the word "wow."
Yeah, I mean, look, she looks, at best, the most forgiving you give. She looks incredibly naive in this, if not intentionally complicit. Because I mean, the fake name that they use, Edward Gregorian, which is kind of almost funny when you think of Gregorian chants, that they're like so that they were so blatant, and as far as like almost
hey, there's two ends
having a laugh. And that was the thing. There's two ends that the guy who sent the guy was misspelling his own name over and over again in emails to them, and that doesn't have red flags.
No red flag.
I mean, that's that the guy's getting the time zone wrong all the time as to where he is.
No, but
that money's coming in from different things, and and she looks frankly kind of like stupid and not asking questions. That's if you want to be aggressive, if you want to attack her. At the kindest, she looks stupid. If you want to look at it from a realistic perspective, as I explained to my audience last night, it's almost as if they went to a Jet fan who's been a season-long Jet fan for the last 20 years, and they say, hey, if you go to Jet games next year, we'll give you $100,000 for every Jet game you go to. And the person's like, oh, I think I'll do that. Okay, I've been doing that anyway. Now you just want to give me money for doing that. So, if you can so you're almost going to be intentionally, you're going to be looking for reasons to justify this because they're basically paying you to do exactly what you have been doing. So why? So, and if they're giving me complete creative control, they're not asking me to, take assert creative control. Like
Joe.
if you're Tim Pool, he's like, I have complete creative control. I'm doing exactly what I was doing, and now I'm just making, I'm just locking in an extra $5 million a year for what I'm doing. Why the hell would I not do that? Who wouldn't do that?
All true, except for the numbers, Joe. The numbers are so staggering. There's no sliding scale. They don't add up. They don't.
Yeah,
add
it just
up.
$8,000 of 8,000 views of video. Joe, matter of fact, you get about 8,000 views of video. Just imagine the advertiser said, "You know what, Joe? We're going to pay you $100,000 for 4 videos with $100,000 signing bonus." You're taking that money like now, right?
I'll tell you right. I'll tell you right now. I think that they probably looked at it as, if you're trying to rationalize it, which if anyone was in that situation, you are hoping that this is true. You're sort of almost hoping that this honeypot, which this is a honeypot situation, right?
Classic honeypot situation.
It's a classic honeypot situation, like this really you kind of hoping, hey, maybe this really pretty girl does see some upside for them long term. As far as how it'll work out for them money-wise, they had tons of money to invest.
So who's honeypotted, her or Lauren Chen or the creators?
The honeypot is the money. The honeypot is the money. So
okay, I was going to say
the creators. The creators
Now hold on. People are talking about Ron Temple didn't flip, but he did tweet out he's cooperating with the FBI.
He didn't flip.
So, but
I don't say he flipped, but
cooperating with them, or talking to them.
He can't flip because he's not a defendant, right? Defendants flip. If he's a victim, the victims don't flip. There's nothing for him to flip.
Okay, but I just wanted to clarify because he didn't quote unquote flip, but he is going to work with the authorities. He stated that on X. That he was going to speak with them and cooperate.
Remember, everyone knows you don't talk to the FBI by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You probably shouldn't talk to the FBI with your lawyers if you can avoid it. But you also don't want to piss off the FBI.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because as heroic as everybody is on social media,
they have 6 ways to Sunday to come after you.
Mm-hmm.
That's
3 felonies a day, right? 3 felonies a day, right?
No, I was quoting someone there who knows what the FBI can do. Okay, that's exactly what
Schumer.
That's what Chuck Schumer said about Trump.
He's CIA, not FBI, I believe.
Okay, same thing. I mean,
I think you might have been saying this the intelligence community actually, which
has
kind of includes
come after you. Yeah.
The real point. I mean, one exchange I had with Will Chamberlain on this was, it really, he said, if it isn't so crazy when you think that somebody at RT, at Russian TV, which is a KGB, whatever the hell that's called now,
state operated media,
operated media,
is probably trying to justify their employment. Like they've been sanctioned, they've been cut off in so many. They're trying to find a reason to exist. And when I saw that, I said, that actually might explain why the numbers are so gaudy, because they're probably trying to burn through a budget so they can justify getting that level of funding from the Kremlin next year. Because they are crazy crazy numbers, and I still don't really see what they got.
But I'm going to say this though, because what they got is Tim Pool saying Ukraine is the enemy of that's I think what they're paying for. But they were trying to but I don't want to make it seem like Tim Pool was saying that because he was getting paid.
He was saying it before he was getting
He was
paid.
saying it before he was getting exactly. He was saying it before he was getting paid. And I'm thinking they're saying we wanted him to continue to say that. So let's incentivize him saying it louder and more vigorous.
It is odd though that
broaden his reach. If you can help him broaden his reach, so in that case, that's how you. If assuming Ron's theory here is correct, so RT can basically go back to the Kremlin and say, "Hey, look, these guys had a reach of X. Now it's X, increased by 30%." Because of that money that we invested in them, and that's what I'm giving you here. So in that sense, there is a benefit to this individual actor of the Kremlin, as Ron is pointing out, to retain relevance and have a budget for themselves so they can continue operating and not have to shut down. Because what are you if you're the American division of RT and everyone has cut you out from being able to access anyone?
But let's also not like when you read through the indictment, there are specific examples of stories that the Russians was like push this, like with the bomb, like the bombing, it was ISIS, but they were trying to
hold on.
There were examples of them suggesting stories and pushing stories.
Suggesting. Okay, well, hold on, Nate. Let's go back to the theory that we're talking about. We could say that, hey, we have somebody who's pro-Russian on this scenario. Is it unusual at all to feed them a story saying, hey, here's another good story you might want to cover in your current pro-Russian coverage? So it's not always nefarious. A nefarious operator could do that, but the person could also say, oh, that's a great story, because they're already set to believe, or they're already pushing a particular narrative. I don't necessarily know if that's a command or suggestion. And if the person's already doing it, hey, you saved me a minute on research. Thank you very much. You're giving me something that I believe in, and I'm just pushing it out.
Well, let's be honest. If you're paying me $500,000 a month to push at a certain narrative, and you give me a suggestion, that's a suggestion I'm going to take very strongly. If I got $400,000 a month based on that suggestion, so it's a suggestion, but suggestion is coming with a lot of cash. But the number two,
but if you're already doing it, Nate, and that's the argument, you're already doing it.
But let me just point to that even point about already doing it. Well, even in the document, it shows there were stories that they were pushing back. I don't think this is going to work. And then they pushed back and said, no, we think it's going to work, and we'll push it. There was a story about the Tucker Carlson in the supermarket where some of the creators were even pushed back and was like, we don't like that story. We're not going to do it. And they pushed back and said, no, we like that story. And they're like, okay, we'll do it. That shows that, hey, even on stories they were
singular.
Even it was singular. Even that, but I'm talking about that one story was an example from the document, because you were saying that was one story where there was pushback. We don't want to cover this story. And then all of a sudden they said, okay, we'll cover the story because we know we got $400,000 a month coming behind that suggestion. So I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think these were just people just saying all this. I think they were able to sculpt it, but now to the degree that they were able to sculpt what they were saying, that's what I think is the point here. And I think Joe's right. I think, scope, scale, but I also got to say, if you get 8,000 views a video and you're paying me $100,000 per video, that just don't make no sense. Right? That just don't make no sense.
It doesn't make financial sense in the short term, obviously. But if they're looking at it as like maybe this is a long-term play for them to develop a new Daily Wire, and that's how they're looking at it. In that case, a lot of times you're making investment in things that are going to be lost leaders, and they're going to be lost leaders in the early going that eventually will help to transform you into a genuine player in the industry. And I can understand if you're Tim Pool or you're Benny Johnson or Dave Rubin, and you know that you're amongst the most established voices in the industry, which are not under contract with anyone else, or prohibited by contract from joining someone else, that you'd be like, yeah, if I was someone who was looking to start a brand new Daily Wire, a brand new Blaze, in that case, I would probably be the top of the list as to who they would want as far as being the talent. And they are listed on Tenet Media as the talent. You can understand that in that sense, putting my name on this is giving this new entity legitimacy. I'm going to charge them through the nose. Supposedly, I mean, Ron was saying the numbers were astronomical, and they were, but purportedly in these charges, that's what these creators were saying is like, no, we're not doing it for less, because they know the value that they add when their names are thrown onto something.
Except they didn't add that value. But anyway, the Daily Wire is the analogy I brought up with to begin with. That's probably how they got sold on the idea, and that's perfectly good. But I do want to say again, Tim Pool is a smart dude. I'm telling you, he is a smart dude. And he did make a statement, the more I think about it, it's like, I think that he kind of knew this whole thing may go a little tits up here. There may be something here, because what did he do? He spun off the show, and the Culture War is another company. And he specifically stated it. So it's kind of a nice protective mechanism, right? If you go ahead and you put the content under another shell, another company. So if things go poorly, he could jettison that thing right away. And, I don't know. Ron, do you have any thoughts on that, or am I completely off my rocker? You're muted.
I got nothing to say. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure I actually follow the geometry. Can you say it again?
Oh, okay. I'm saying that Tim Pool maybe suspected that the deal may not be perfect. I don't know. I'm saying he might have had some degree of uncertainty, and he protected himself by creating the other corporation, putting all the assets of that particular show on that corporation, and withdrawing the money from that corporation. It is separate, and he specifically said separate from all Tim Pool assets, his empire, his Tim Pool empire.
Oh, so that's what he could, if it didn't work out, he could just walk away from it, and it wouldn't have effect on the brand.
Yes.
That's a great point, because that is the timing. As far as when I remember, he had like a poll, and he's like, if people want me to shut this down, I'll shut this down. And that's when everything all of a sudden switched over. And it was around the timing that he ended up signing up with Tenet Media. So, and you say what you want about Tim Pool. He's a shrewd individual and understands marketing. And if so, you have to sort of tip your cap to him as far as understanding how to help insulate himself while at the same time building his own marketing. Hey, you got to respect the player. That's what I say. Respect the player.
Eric, can you play that Barnes statement again? Because we missed it. I think me and Joe missed it.
Oh, okay. Let me go get it. I did play it on here, so I'm not going to play the whole thing, but we'll get to the.
But I want to. Are they victims? And I
don't look at them as victims. I just look at them as people. Look boo hoo! You're a victim who made $5 million over the last year. Because
I know I want to be victimized myself.
It's like please.
All right, here we go. So you guys can see it.
One other little tangent on the Russia thing. If this was really an RT effort, it would have been much more sophisticated, much more creative, much more innovative. And they would have targeted a whole different set of people. Lauren Chan's never been geopolitically savvy, nor followed for her geopolitics. Tim Pool, in the few instances he gets off a fence, which isn't all that common, let's be honest. He's been anti-Russian most of the time he's been on there. It took him a while to even second guess the Ukrainian war. The Benny Johnson, I like Benny's okay. But, you're not going to look to him for geopolitics. And once again, not someone who's ever been pro-Putin or Russia. Dave Urban, same thing. He's a libertarian war skeptic. But there again, not aligned on those issues. So those wouldn't have been the people they pitched anyway. The other giveaway that it was a spook operation.
Hold on a second.
They stayed away from the people who would have.
Okay.
What Bob is saying here is, this is such a transparently bad idea. Oh, here she is. This is such a transparently bad idea that the Russians wouldn't have done it. Only the Department of Justice would be stupid enough to think we would believe it, but the Russians wouldn't be stupid enough to think we would believe it.
Right. It's a deep state.
I don't know. So
Russia today is too smart for that.
Right. And I don't understand the metric by which we say too dumb for the Russians would never do something so dumb, but DOJ would do something so dumb.
Right.
But I don't understand the metric by which we say too dumb for the Russians would never do something so dumb, but DOJ would do something so dumb.
It's because just Russia.
I understand not believing anything that comes out of Merrick Garland. I mean, he's by far the most corrupt and compromised attorney general in the history of the United States. I wouldn't trust him to make change for a dollar bill. But we got to, nonetheless, like you pointed out, Nate, this is a detailed document.
Yeah, but Barnes is again, when you got the facts, argue the facts, you got the law, argue the law, when you got neither, just call it a Russian conspiracy and a conspiracy for the deep state, and and you got people arguing, oh, it's a deep state conspiracy. You follow the money trail. She's got paid. Lauren Chen is in the documents. You got her statements in the documents. The Twitter, the Discord, they put it all in there because they want to make sure it's clear this money came from Russia. And so if Barnes' retort to this document is that the Russians are too smart to do this, then I don't know. It's just not convincing to me.
Anyway, I brought invited Ari on because Ari has managed a ton of influencers, very high value people, or whatever you want to put, or very expensive people, so she could get some enlightenment on how easily or difficult it is for I hate the term influencer, media personalities or whatever you want to call them to be suckered into a deal such as this.
I mean, so I had questions about.
You're hot.
Yeah, hold on. I got it. Let me see. There we go. Keep going.
Oh, can you hear me now?
No,
that's a little bit better. Yeah.
Maybe go a little lower.
All right. Try it now.
Oh, that's much better, but you're muted.
Oh, all right. See the misogyny card to the bottom right. Sexist Joe.
You're still muted.
Yeah, you're muted, Ari.
I think she's trying to change her. Because like I'll say this, for me, I have an agent who deals with all that, who does the vetting and all that. And sometimes he even gets it wrong. So I'm assuming, but the more money you pay, the more, it's
it's like money, in any kind. The more money, the more, the less curious you are.
Is that working now?
That's good.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry.
It can be a little
I thought
louder.
it was really interesting when I was when I went on the culture war. I asked him all about it right after we shot because I thought it was weird that Lauren Chen was going after Steven Crowder. And I was like, is there some like hidden thing other than maybe she's friends with Lauren Southern? Like I thought that maybe she was going after Steven Crowder because he's like a media company in that same space that she was in. And I had like looked it up that basically she was behind that company, Tenet Media. But the interesting thing was like, supposedly the Blaze says that they didn't think she was that involved, that they thought, because I was like, I asked the Blaze, I was like, I actually asked the CEO, I was like, how did you guys allow her to do that deal with, she's hired by the Blaze, but she has her own media company. Like, why did you guys, like, was that a breach of her contract? You guys just allowed it. And they were like, my impression was that they just thought it was kind of her husband's deal, a little side project she was doing, because they had like a booth at TPUSA, and it just seemed like they were kind of like a startup in that space. But yeah, when I asked him about it, he was just like, yeah, it's a good deal for us because we already we handle flying in the people. We already, we just basically, have the topics. There's a girl that books the talent on there, and she was the one coming up with the topics. So it seemed like it made sense to him to take the deal. But let's just talk about other influencers that are not like political or conservative. If you have millions of followers, you're making $100,000 an ad read. Like, it doesn't, $100,000 an episode is like, I think, standard going rate for the type of numbers. The problem is that these types of influencers don't usually get deals like that handed to them all the time. Like Sniper Wolf, she's like I don't know, she is like a funny kind of girl. I'm friendly with her. She got wired, I think it's like $180,000 for one little tiny, slot in her bigger video So and it's on her own channel. It's not on another media company's channel. So those numbers I don't think are crazy. But I think for the niche that Tim and Benny and all those people are in, they're like, oh, this is a good deal. We got to take this. It makes sense why they took it, in my opinion.
But what about performance requirements, Ari? I mean, I get it. It's like, oh, you've got a big name, but you mentioned Sniper Wolf. When they pay the $100,000, they are getting that exposure of a massive audience.
20 million views a video.
These people are paying $100,000 per episode for Tim Pool, and this is not Timcast IRL, where I would say, well, yeah, did that actually kind of make some sense? That's getting, hundreds of thousands to millions for those, but it's like literally kind of this, I don't want to say ghetto, but back alley channel in a weird way.
It's like paying to be only on Rumble and not on YouTube.
Well, there's an example. So Sniper Wolf has another channel called, I think it's called Lil Leah. So her main channel is like everybody channel. It's kind of like the McDonald's of Sniper Wolf in the sense of like everybody kind of all ages watch it, whatever. And maybe like it's more guys, that came from gaming or something watch it. But she may want to promote like shampoo or makeup. And a lot of the people that watch her Lil Leah channel aren't people that put makeup on. Her Sniper Wolf main channel don't use makeup because they're guys. So she created Lil Leah, which maybe, I don't know, let's say it has 1 million followers and gets 100,000. I don't know what the numbers are now, but she uses that specifically to only, so she can, so she can target and she doesn't have to turn down. So for example, like let's say I own a lip gloss company. I can't pay Sniper Wolf what she would charge me on Sniper Wolf's channel, but I can pay her what she would charge me on Lil Leah's channel. But what she's not doing is she's not going on Sniper Wolf channel and saying, hey, make sure you watch Lil Leah because I'm promoting this, chapstick or whatever. She's not mentioning it. And that's the deal that basically Tim got, where you don't see him promoting Tenet Media on even Instagram, on Twitter. When I went on as a guest, I didn't even have when I went on Alex Stein, they make you like a little flyer with your face on it that you're going to be on a show so that you can promote it because they want traffic to go to that Blaze owned channel. They want to have big people on so that more people watch the show. What I thought was weird is that nobody sent me a flyer. Nobody cared. It seemed like I just show up and nobody cared to even promote the Tenet Media. So it was weird that stipulation wasn't even asked for in the contract with Tim. Maybe it was, and Tim said no.
And did Tenet Media themselves promote it? I mean, was there any promotion? Because you're right, that is very odd.
Well, it makes you think that the money wasn't to be, we're doing the show as a proxy just for the cash. Because that's what essentially, if you're selling me, there's no views, there's no money, the show's not giving any traction. We're not even promoting the thing. So why am I getting paid $100,000?
But then that argues against the value of their investment, because aren't they trying to sow discord and influence people? You can't influence people if nobody watches.
In other words, it makes it almost seem like the payment was to Tim, not really for his Tenet Media operation, but to keep him saying, because again, we're all saying the same thing. It doesn't make sense to pay this amount of money for not promoting, not doing this, not doing this. So if the money's not going for any value for this product, then why are you paying me $100,000 an episode?
Well, I understand what you're saying there, but there's a lot of times where, like, I think I said in the chat earlier, like there might be just like a billionaire that wants to be associated to Mr. Beast. So he'll pay, $1 million to have him show up, for 20 minutes at his son's birthday party or 10 million, whatever the number is. And sometimes you just throw a number out and say like, oh yeah, you're not going to pay this. And then if they say they're going to do it, then we're like, okay, well, why won't I do it? You don't know people's, intentions. Obviously these types of influencers might have more reason to say, where's this money coming from or whatever, but your typical talent isn't gonna like research this stuff very much. They're like, if they want to spend it, I'm gonna take the money, That's not the smart thing to do.
Now, and before pushing back, I have heard Tim promote the culture war on Timcast IRL in the sense like Fresh and Fit went on the day after I went on Tim Pool, and he was talking about, and Fresh and Fit are going to be here, the culture war in the morning. So he does do that. And I know he said it in Timcast IRL that, culture war tomorrow, blah, 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 blah. So I think at least one day a week he does promote it or talks about it.
To know what the contract would be. Cause like when I had my influencers, like that would be very specific in the contract. So like if Sniper Wolf had, I didn't rep Sniper Wolf, I'm just using her as an example, but if she had a deal, you know, it would say very specifically, she has to mention it on Twitter, she has to mention it on Instagram, on a story, like it was all deliverable based. Now Tim could just be doing that because he had a good deal and he was trying to you know, like trying to be a good partner to them. I don't know, but you know, I just do find it weird though that all these people that were all friends, like Lauren Southern and Lauren Chen and like just all these girls, now all of a sudden everybody's turning on each other. I'm like, how could they not know? It's just weird to me. How could
But you
they
see,
not
that's
know?
arguing the deep state angle for Barnes, because Barnes could say, well, look at that. It's sowing discord throughout the entire conservative commentator community. Everybody's talking about each other and causing problems there. So I am saying that does work into a nice deep state narrative.
It works every bit as well with a Russia narrative.
Yeah.
At least as well, because listen, in 2016, I said, who cares? But
How does that work with a Russian narrative?
I'll tell you exactly. Anyone who thought that Putin wanted Trump as opposed to Hillary Clinton in office was nuts. And anyone who thinks that Putin wants Trump instead of Harris,
well, he endorsed Kamala Harris. He literally came out and said he wants her.
Yeah, like, I don't
Like,
think
well,
nobody
of
believes
course.
that,
Why would
but,
he?
yeah.
Why on earth would he want someone who? I mean, first of all, the problem with that is that he said he thinks that you think that he thinks. You know, is he really doing? Is it a head fake? Who the hell knows? But no Russian leader wants a strong American president. They want a weak American president, especially one who is inept, incompetent, inexperienced, and unknowledgeable on foreign policy in particular, and who's anti, you know, all the things that contribute to American weakness provide opportunities and flexibility and elbow room for Putin. So, it makes perfect sense for the Russians to do this. And in fact, it was about a month ago, 6 weeks, maybe even a month ago, Cernovich was tweeting this dividing that's going on in the conservative movement, like over pro-life and over platform issues, like really, really vicious stuff. He said, and this is, I happen to think Mike's incredibly insightful. He misses it sometimes, but this smells to me like foreign money. This doesn't seem organic to me because I just don't. It's just the time, the timing of it. And Lauren has been particularly obnoxious, especially this year. And okay, I'm prejudiced because she's viciously pro-Hamas, or she's anti-Israel. Let's put it that way. It certainly makes sense to say that this would be consistent with the Russia theory. And again, it goes back to my question: to what extent? If anyone, I've been chatting a little bit in the comments. I want to reiterate, I have no reason to believe the Justice Department about anything. They are terrible.
Yeah.
But they are bringing the receipts here, and this is not a Jack Smith special.
No. There's definitely receipts here, and I think also sometimes when we do these, when we start talking about this, we forget about the facts in the document. These influencers did push back, did question where's this money coming from, did say we need to see more, we can't find this guy, and they were given the fake CV, and all that stuff. And even in the CV, they looked, and the only problem they had was with the social justice part, right? And they still said, "We'll sign up." So it's not like they were saying, "Okay, this money's coming, we don't care." They supposedly did do a little due diligence and were fooled. And I would also say too, for the people who are being hard on Tim and the people who were fooled, think about this: in a spy game, that's the whole idea, is to fool people, right? And so if you're fooled by a spy, that's the game. So again, it's a lot of money. I don't blame them. But I do think now when you're going to do your due diligence on something like this, if somebody gives you a fake Russian billionaire, that was a Google search away. Somebody and they didn't do it.
Well, hold on.
Well, they
Fake
did a Google
French
search, and then they
French
ignored the
billionaire.
results.
Yeah, they
French
ignored the results.
billionaire. French
Oh,
billionaire.
sorry, French billionaire.
Well, it is a big difference.
No, you're right. You're right. But either way, he didn't exist.
A French billionaire who doesn't know what time it is in France.
Whose IP address is from Moscow, and all of a sudden he can't spell his name because he keeps leaving out one of the ends. Like.
I mean, this talent is different though, in the sense that, like, do you think that because like I think that Tim is probably the one reading through the agreements, like maybe side by side with an attorney or with an agent or something like typically a talent isn't even looking at so these are different types of talent. Like, these people are I'm guessing, I don't know about Benny and
Dave
Rubin
Rubin's sharp as hell. He built Locals. He built an entire company that got picked up by
Dave-
Rumble with David Stacks.
Dave
Yeah.
is very smart.
Yeah, so these are not people that are just having their agent look at. I'm saying, like, I could see it in like my world. If like a TikToker, they would just easily, it was my agent. They looked at it, they had me sign it, and forget about. But these are people that are very well versed in their craft. They've built their businesses. Like, they're the ones looking at these contracts. So I mean, that's one thing that they have to take kind of ownership of, is that they were the ones making the decision, and they're smart enough to understand the agreements and how the thing was going to work. But I think what sucks is just like, this industry is so kind of like in the weeds that the headline is like, these guys got duped. Either they got duped by the Russians, or they were part of this Russian scam, and it just looks bad because the media, how they do things, and a lot of people aren't looking at the details or even reading the indictment and all the stuff that you guys are saying. So it's just kind of a bummer, because they're just going to run with it.
No, if I didn't read the indictment, I would definitely probably be more on the Barnes side with, hey, this obviously is the government close to the election. They want to throw some shade. Like, it just makes sense. But
But if it's election interference, there's no other time. This is when you would bring it.
that's true. Yeah, I know. But it's just like, and then when you read, if it wasn't
Two things
so
can be true at
specific,
once.
I would be again, but it's so specific, and they just lay it out, and just
Nate, two things can be true at once. Two things can be true at once. It could be a legitimate indictment, and they could say, been building this case for 9 months, 10 months.
Yes,
And
exactly.
Said, oh, well, you know
they
what?
could have
We'll
brought it
release
6 months
now.
ago.
So
They could have brought it 6 months ago, but they waited till now. And then like they did with Hunter Biden and the indictments that they, which now are convictions or becoming convictions, as he's going to be pleading guilty. And they have these tiny little things on Hunter Biden while hitting bazooka shot after bazooka shot at Trump. So
but what happened this week? What happened this week?
So too with Kathy Hochul, that they're trying to
convicted.
just sort of like deflect away from the real story, as far as like she's been infiltrated by Chinese spies. By basically
No. I'm talking about what
portray-
happened this week with Hunter Biden. He tried to put in that bullshit. What's the term, Nate?
Alfred plea.
Albert
The Alfred
and
plea, yeah.
They say, and Shipwreck said they're not going to go for that. There's no way that's happening. And of course, everyone, you're a Fed. It didn't happen.
But here's what I don't understand legally. Maybe so when you who deal with Alfred pleas understands.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that Abby Lowell, counsel for Hunter Biden, made a pretty strong argument that a defendant has a right to make an Alfred plea. It doesn't matter what the state wants. But
the judge will never accept it if the DOJ doesn't sign off.
That's the way it works.
Because
It's bullshit.
Yeah, you're agreeing to the person saying, I really didn't do it, but the facts and evidence kind of show that I did it, so I'm guilty kind of by circumstance. So the state has to agree to that, but the defendant can always just plead guilty and end it, and the state has no control over that. But for an Alfred plea, you're specifically not. It's a no contest plea for those of you in the more Western states.
Hey, I got a couple Rumble rants.
I have to run. I just wanted to come say hi really fast, but I have a wild theory. I would throw it out there. It's probably not true, but like, could it have been that it started out where the Russians, were paying Lauren, and they were like going to build up this channel, and then it was doing so bad that they're like, let's just throw them all under the bus, and then sow all this discord, and then blow up the whole thing, and then everybody looks bad.
90% of it. Think about this: 90% of Tenet Media's funding was from the Russian government. They trace back to the Russian government.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe they were going to do something with it, and then they're like, well, let's actually just make all these conservative influencers look bad and blow it up. No, I'm just kidding. I really don't know.
Actually, that's brilliant though. If you think about it, it could be a double. Like if you think about what Ron just said, right? Putin has always invaded these countries under democratic rule. Obama, and then he invaded it under Biden, right? When Trump was there, he didn't do any of this. He wasn't doing anything. Matter of fact, Trump attacked Russia when Russia in the Syria issue. Remember when he shot the cruise missiles in Syria? So if this could be one of those things where we're all thinking that he's trying to help Trump, where in this instance, you actually have proof that he's trying to hurt Trump because he's made all these conservative media people look suspect.
Right. That's what I think. Somebody want to make the conservatives look bad.
It's possible.
I will say this. It's a really interesting mindset that we seem to be inherently displaying here, which is Russia is corrupt. Our government is corrupt. We assume that the American corruption is more inept than the Russian corruption. In other words, that the Russians would do it better. Whatever way that like, you know, okay, I mean, that's what's implied by
you
Barnes'
looked at the administration lately,
and
yes.
And that's and I guess if you look at the heads of each state, you can understand why, you know, Putin looks a lot smarter than people who are running the government here. I don't know that his people working around him are necessarily smarter than the people who are working around ours. I don't know.
Let's just say that I think he would have a bullet in his head if he wasn't more clever. Okay.
I'm just saying. I'm not. Look, I'm not saying that he's stupid at all. I haven't seen him display stupidity. I've seen him display irrationality, but not stupidity.
Putin?
Yeah.
Irrationality, but not stupidity.
Yeah, he can be reckless at times, but stupid. Yeah,
well, obviously, Ukraine is not going the way he thought it would go.
Right.
He wasn't stupid. He was irrational. I mean, yes, he was. It probably was bad judgment for him to rely on an inherently corrupt bureaucracy to advise. In
fairness, Joe, he's not fighting Ukraine. He's fighting Ukraine funded by the U.S., EU, everybody just pumping.
Well, why wouldn't he? Right, that's something you would anticipate. That's something you would anticipate.
Potentially, but maybe he didn't anticipate it to the degree. So he could be mistaken in how long are they going to back it up? How far are they going to push it? How much money?
He's not stupid. He's obviously not stupid. I mean, there are very few people really in public life who you can clearly identify as being stupid. Kamala Harris is stupid. Mm-hmm. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the stupidest Jew on earth, to my knowledge. There are legitimately that senator from Hawaii. She's brain damaged stupid. I mean, we're talking some really.
Hirono woman is who you're talking about.
What's her name?
Hirono?
My God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I wanted to say too is that in this Twitter space yesterday, I was just like wanting to talk, like listen to what people are saying, but they were getting so into the Israel versus the other thing, and then they were all just saying, "Well, Lauren Chen is now the scapegoat because she's talking bad of Israel, so now that's the only reason they're gonna go after her."
She's
everything,
a
you know what I'm saying?
everything goes to Israel.
It's like there's like 1,000 people in that room, and I'm just like, how did this turn into a conversation about this? So anyway,
it's always the truth.
I know.
Hold on.
I know.
On that note, I have 3 rants that I want to get through here really quickly. I'll go out of order because right on cue. Russia paying right wingers equals bad, but Israel paying people in the U.S. government through AIPAC, God's work. Make that make sense. Second one, same person. So now it's the anti-Israel to hold Israel to the same standards we hold everyone else. LMAO seems legit. And then this one actually came earlier. Sniper Wolf is a crazy stalking, doxing schizo. Did she ever get in trouble for showing everyone on her Twitch where one of her detractors lives, or does she skate by because boobs?
No, let's just say this. I will defend Sniper Wolf on this. She shouldn't have done that. She went a little unhinged because this guy was trolling her. He made a channel just to troll her, and she got annoyed. But let's just remember that when there was a house called Team 10, that was when Jake Paul was really popular. There would be floods of teenagers and elementary school kids out in front of the house filming the house and showing where it was. Technically, they were doxing the house. Like, it's like, you know, you could be on a street and have your phone. She wasn't saying people go there, whatever. Anyway, people like to take things and like, these days, I mean, you could say anything is anything, but she's not a crazy psycho. I think she just had a moment where she, had a bit of a crisis because she was getting bullied. But I feel like every influencer at some point is going to have a meltdown. It's just a matter of how they handle it. Me included, I've had meltdowns. So anyway, on that note, it was good to see you guys.
Great seeing you, Ari. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I got a couple of local tips that I want to cover too. It won't take long. Don Suden said the case will all fall down. Foreign investment is throughout mainstream and the publication industry, aka Clinton and Obama grift.
Well, hold on. Can I get
publication payoff?
After you finish this one, I do want to respond to the whole Israel part and APAC.
Oh yeah.
Just so everybody understands, they follow the law. APAC is registered as a word agent. They go through there's no money laundering involved. APAC is funding it. Everybody, it's very clear. So they what they've done is equate criminal activity with lawful activity. So yes, APAC does support and do all this, but they are 100% above board. It follows all the laws. That's why they're successful at doing it.
All right, fair enough. This one I thought was interesting. Interested party said, didn't everyone see Tim Pool's post about the FBI as a troll? I didn't think about that. Technically, it's hard to read sarcasm in a tweet. So he could have said, I'm cooperating with the FBI as a troll. I never thought of it. I don't think he did, but.
Well, he's a victim. So, the victim of Tim Pool.
Well,
this is for real. He's not trolling. He was the previous week, couple of weeks, Tim has been trolling nonstop on all kinds of stuff just to rile people up. Not when the FBI shows up. Everyone's very brave on social media.
Yeah.
You really have no, and like all the second guessing. He flipped. You have no idea what this can do to your life. Look what they did to these J6 people. It's insane. Come on.
I agree that he was trolling, though. I think yesterday when he said, "I've seen the light. We need to give $200 billion to Ukraine. We need to double it immediately." That was an obvious troll.
That was right.
But don't forget, though, what we're seeing in this indictment isn't everything they got, because obviously they had infiltrated the Discord. They had infiltrated. They have all the, and if Lauren Chen and the rest of them are cooperating, which seems to be clear that they are, all her communications with Tam, his team, and all that stuff are also out there. So there may be some stuff here that may be even more critical that we just don't know about. And I think it would be fearful if I was one of those creators, because again, if you look through the indictment, it does suggest some pointing in directions for some payments from some of these people. It just does. You got to read it.
Well, okay. I did have one more story. I can't believe literally the whole show has been Tenet Media, but it is an interesting case.
I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I did want to cover one because we at least usually cover two stories.
Tell me you're doing the Alec Baldwin thing, because we got to do the Alec Baldwin thing. All right.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Quite literally, that's what I'm doing. Nate and I had a long discussion about this, and that's why I wanted to bring it up today in front of everybody, because, well, one, I have personal experience with Carrie Morrissey, which Nate can confirm. And it appears to me that Carrie Morrissey will not quit, that she is saying, no, the judge, you were wrong in dismissing these charges with prejudice. You need to undismiss them. I'm trying to think of what the right term is, but she said the charge needs to be reinstated. And that sent alarm bells in my head. I'm not a fan of Alec Baldwin, but I kind of am like, well, wait a minute, isn't that kind of double jeopardy? I mean, first you go to trial, then you're charged, then you're not charged, then you're in trial, then it's dismissed with prejudice, but he's still potentially under threat. So somebody make it make sense to me.
All I see from this is, how bad do you have to be at your job to find a way to unwittingly turn Alec Baldwin into a sympathetic figure? I mean, this guy is the least sympathetic individual. He seems like this entitled, rich, old white guy who is a complete douchebag to his own family. And at this point, she's made him look like the victim in this entire, the guy who shot someone and then basically admitted to it, and while acting like a complete jackass and not genuinely sorry about it. And somehow she managed to make him look like the sympathetic figure. That means you need to reassess everything about the way you're doing your job. That's my takeaway from this. Because he does look sympathetic. He looks like, she's relentlessly hounding him. You even are noting it. You're saying, like, begrudgingly, I'm feeling bad for Alec Baldwin. And you're not alone. Because
I'm you know what? I look, one, I faced the wrath of this person personally, but I'm a citizen, and I'm thinking, well, if I was in that spot, and I've gone through all this, all the expense, the trials, everything. Finally, okay, it's over. It's over. Hug, hug, cry, cry. I'm moving on, and then hold that thought, Eric.
Know when to say no mas. There's a certain point you have to just know when it's like it's over. It's over. Okay, maybe you didn't foresee it coming. You obviously didn't see it coming, but it's over. Once you got on the stand, it was over. It's like, what the hell's happening here? I mean, did you ever imagine, Ron, that you would see a prosecutor take the stand trying to salvage her own case?
That was one of the old time train wrecks.
Well, Fannie Willis did it too.
Bonnie did too, yeah.
Bonnie did it too.
And how's that working out for her?
Bad, horrible.
By the way, she showed up with Nathan Wade last week for her daughter. But okay, but let me get back to the basic point. How is that even possible? Help me out, lawyers. What about double jeopardy? What about harassment? What about these things? Is it possible to charge him again after the whole damn thing's been dismissed with prejudice?
So I as far as double jeopardy, I don't know. I mean, I am curious about that. If we say, I mean, jeopardy, I think you would think would attach the moment the trial starts.
There was no verdict.
But there is no verdict. Right.
So what there is a judge made a legal, Nate, we're really leaning on you here, but as an amateur, because everyone here knows I don't do criminal law, but the judge made a legal ruling.
Right.
Yeah.
And a legal ruling can be appealed.
Yes. So, well, jeopardy, when jeopardy attaches, obviously that's when you can't bring the charges back again. So like you're saying, the judge didn't make a legal ruling. So what they're asking is that they're saying, hey, judge, was wrong based on the facts because you had insufficient facts to support it. So they're going back to that same judge and saying we should reevaluate and try to make a second argument. And that could actually be appealed. But if this was, let's say, if it was a jury that came back or a judge came back and said, as a finder of fact, you're guilty, the only way you can get that overturned is if you could show there was some corruption in the process. Like, for instance, I used to use the Cocaine Cowboys case in Florida.
You mean not guilty, Nate?
Not guilty, yeah. Okay. Yeah, not guilty. The Cocaine Cowboys case in Florida, where they were all found not guilty, but then they found out that they had paid off members of the jury for that not guilty verdict. So you can rebring those charges because technically the person was never in jeopardy because the jury was paid off. So you were never in jeopardy. So you can rebring those charges back, and then you charge them with the jury tampering too. So in cases, so you need cases like this. So in this, if they're the prosecutor, they can argue that, hey, this shouldn't have been dismissed with prejudice. But they're asking for the re-argument at the lower court. And then if that judge denies you, you can then take up an appeal and say, hey, we still want to bring this. This also happened in sentencing a lot of the times. For instance, there was a big case under the Obama administration in Oregon. I don't know if you're going to remember the Oregon ranchers, where the judge gave them like a year. But then after there was during sentencing, the judge gave them a year. Then the government went and appealed it and said, well, hey, the sentencing guidelines say the judge has to give 5 years. So they appealed it, and then the appeals court said, yeah, the right judgment was to get more time. And then that's when the ranchers went to all the hell. This is bull, BS. The judge had already ruled, and then took over I think they did a sit-in on some government land, and it was like an issue.
Well, this happened in the Usher Eisenman case in New Jersey, where another case where the case has been up and down, and every judges keep trying to get rid of it, and finally they got rid of it for good. But an earlier dismissal was appealed. They tried him again, and it got thrown out again.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that right now they're saying that they, again, the arguments seem to be that there was like some collusion with the defense team, like they essentially already knew of this information, that them not turning it over wasn't the issue, that they already knew, and they kind of already planned this whole thing to get this dismissal. So it seems like that's what they're going for. But I agree with Joe 100%, where you kind of messed up. They got you, and it's time to let this thing go.
All right, it's time to unleash the Joe. So I'm going to switch subjects again to one that'll probably get him going pretty well. So let's see here. How many of you have seen this Lincoln Project, which any right winger would automatically, their skin crawls when they hear Lincoln Project, to Merrick Garland to try to go after Trump criminally over, and this is where it's very interesting because I don't know if it's legit, not legit. Anyway, Attorney General Garland, the Lincoln Project formally requests that your office open an investigation into Donald Trump to determine if he violated 18C 599, whatever, or 18 USC 600 for promising to appoint or support for appointment Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to a public office in exchange for RFK Jr. endorsing and supporting Trump's campaign for president of the United States.
Oh my God. Is that real?
This is 100. No, this is 100% real.
Project real?
Is this
is this letter real? It's like this,
August 30th, 2024. No, it's
like that would be like every what's it called? Every ambassador. There would be no ambassadors. Isn't that like generally what happens with the ambassadors? You get the ambassadorship. It's only you have to do it. You support me during the election, and you're an ambassador of Zimbabwe now.
Just referring to the first sentence showing on the screen there, he's been convicted of 0 felonies.
Oh yeah.
I just want to correct that to anyone who's still trying to throw that out there. He has been convicted. You are not convicted of a single crime until such time as a judge sentences you.
Until sentencing.
And if you look at New York Criminal Procedure Law 330.30, subsection 2, it explains that in this stage where there is a guilty verdict and you have issues and you have not yet been sentenced and you have issues that you want to raise, they describe the defendant in that as the prospective convicted felon, meaning you're not yet a convicted felon, you are a prospective anticipated. I don't remember if it's prospective or anticipated, but one of those words is definitely the words that they use in that statute. I haven't looked at it in a couple months, but you will see that this CPL 330.30, I'm pointing you right to it, and you will see that New York refers to a person in his status as someone who I think it's anticipated conviction, because you're not yet convicted. He's not convicted. And the left loves saying 34 convictions, when in fact, many times people will receive a guilty verdict and never become convicted. And Donald Trump seems to be in a unique situation, given the fact that Judge Merchan has already pushed it back and said, I'll sentence him at a later date if still necessary, that he seems to himself question whether Donald Trump will ever become a convicted felon for even 10 minutes before we get overturned. One would hope, based on the gross error,
somebody said
grossly obvious and disturbing judicial errors that were made in the jury charges, first and foremost, but and several other ways as well, that this would never actually hold up to a period of time where he would actually have to serve a day of any sort of sentence. My point is, he's not a convict. He likely never will be a convict. So, yeah, but the Lincoln Project is not one for actual facts or insight. They're just one for rage baiting. And I'm not taking your bait, Eric Hunley. I'm not falling for it.
All right, so
I think it's going to be interesting.
It seems ludicrous to me because I guess they're trying to define that if he explicitly said, if you endorse me, you will be this position. Maybe that's it versus the the implied, because I mean, all of them say, look out for them. They're going to be a part of my administration. They're going to be a part of my movement. Or they use terms that are vaguer. Maybe his is too specific, but it just doesn't seem right. It seems like everybody does this, as you pointed out, ambassadors, whatever else, somebody's getting something.
Of course, that's the way it goes. It's like, don't get me wrong, I understand what the Labour Party is trying to do, anti-Trump, but it's ridiculous. It's like, what can you do?
But anyway, I had to bring that one up because, oh, by the way, we've got another rant answering, I think you, Nate, specifically saying, so it's okay to buy politicians because they filed the magic paperwork. It's effectively the same thing. It's just legal because we're addicted to Israel's money. So we carved out a way to make it legal. No, it's not just Israel.
Israel's money. Well, I thought they take all our money. Now we're taking their money.
I just to be clear, if you follow the law, like Citizens United, right? I don't like the ruling, but if you follow the law, and this is the law, and you do everything the law says do, register as a foreign agent, don't launder the money. Yes, 100%. If you're Qatar, if you're Israel, I don't care what country. If you follow the law and you're giving the people the money and they disclose this is where the money's coming from, then I believe you have the right to spend your money the way you want. I might just be a cockeyed capitalist, but yes, that is what I believe. If they follow the law, then yes, they should be able to do it. I don't know. Is this like some crazy idea that I'm saying? Follow the law.
It's about exposure of it. I mean, technically, right? It's saying, hey, you register, so any ad is or whatever flag saying no, these are that. So it's just revealing
as you follow
that there's
the
influence.
law. As long as you follow the law. If you can make the argument that the law should be changed, but his argument's with the law, not with me, not with my conclusion. Yeah, what he's saying is yes, it's true. As long as you follow the law.
All right. I got one more. I don't know if it short or not, but the last case. Anybody have any thoughts with the unfortunate the school shooting? We have a father another father who was charged. So this is 3 times now that the parents have been charged. You've got the Crumley case. You got the case near me where it wasn't a murder. It was attempted murder, but the mother was charged and I think sentenced too. I think she pled out.
Really?
And then there's now the father in Georgia. And I will admit some of the father in Georgia doesn't sound good. I would think a little less about somebody if the police have visited your house over threats in the past that the individual's putting out, and you buy them a gun for Christmas. That I would say there's a response, that might be a bit irresponsible, but I don't know to what end.
But is it criminal? That's the question.
That's a good question.
So,
and
I actually approached this story last night briefly, and I came to this with a sense of revulsion that this is a way of attacking Second Amendment advocates.
Of course it is.
And that's what's happening here. And that is where I'm starting at, and I'm still at today. But I am sufficiently open to the idea that we don't have enough facts here, that the police likely have more facts in this than we have. So, and there are circumstances where, look, if you know that this kid is some raving lunatic and has threatened to shoot up schools, and you seriously hand him a gun that day, and you're like, and he's sitting there raging about how he wants to, or you let him, raging how he wants to, he wants to inflict serious harm on random people, and you basically do nothing about it, then I think we have to say, okay, there's some culpability here. Now, I don't know that's what happened.
I think we'd agree civil, definitely, right?
Well, definitely civil. But if civil, I think we all could agree that, hey, look, the guy's acting like a lunatic. You gave him access to this thing that he never would have access to, and now he's walking out the door, and you don't even do anything to try and protect the people who are in his path. I think it's almost like getting someone, completely drunk and then handing the keys to your car. It's like at a certain point you sort of have to say, okay, look, I'm all for a Second Amendment and making sure that we're not trying to punish people who believe in the Second Amendment. So I don't know the specifics of this particular case. There are circumstances where you can say, all right, maybe this person was incredibly reckless in ways that are just awful and irresponsible. I was shocked to see that there were 2 murder 2 charges, and then someone had me look up the statute. The reason that some of those manslaughter charges are raised potentially murder 2 charges is because under Georgia law, if the offense includes cruelty to minors, it gets jacked up to a murder 2. Normally, murder 2 implies a certain mens rea, that the father has the intent to cause harm, and as opposed to manslaughter, which is that your criminally reckless behavior is what caused someone's death. Murder 2 means you intended for someone to die. And I was like, how do you get that on the father? Like,
but they always overcharge it.
But I mean, how do you even think to charge that on the father? Because unless he literally said, go shoot Timmy, how on earth can you say that he had mens rea? But that's how Georgia would get you to that. You don't need the mens rea for murder 2 charge if, in fact, it's including cruelty to children, and that's what they charge: 8 charges of cruelty to children. So I'm starting in the Second Amendment position, the pro Second Amendment slot of I'm assuming that this is really a gross attempt to abuse Second Amendment rights holders, but I'm admitting that I'm not married to that, depending on the facts that come out that are not yet available to the public, if that makes sense. I think that's the fairest way to approach it, in a way that you're sort of looking at things reasonably. But that's just my take.
Well, we'll probably be visiting it more. I mean, it's relatively new, and I haven't dug into it. I don't know if any.
It was just the charge just filed last evening is when they first.
Well, a lot happened. I mean, think about it. The Tenet Media is not even 2 days old. We got this. I mean, it just.
I did a whole 180 on my show yesterday at like 6:00 in the evening, because I was like, I was going to cover the Crowder thing. I was going to cover this other thing. The next thing I know, I was like, all these stories are popping. I was like, I got to cover Tenet Media. I have to cover this father. I have to, there was just a lot of things that popped off late last night. So
yeah, it's crazy the way it's going. I mean, on America's Untold, we're having to do news more frequently. So some of our Tuesdays are now news shows too, because we can't keep up with Freeform Friday, and it's just piling up. It's shocking. But on that note, Nate, you came back just in time to tell us what you have going on.
For those of you who don't know, we've been changing up the channel's direction a little bit. So we're trying to integrate some stories. For some reason, YouTube has been coming down like super hard on me in terms of copyright. So like the video I got with Ron is like we've edited like 4 times, and it's like copyright. So we have yeah. Matter of fact, I'll show you guys when we go offline. It's just like it's all copyrights.
Because they know that I'm part of their copyright problem.
Oh damn! Hold on! Breaking news here.
This was supposed to come today.
Wow! Finally, so we could say the sentencing has no election interference. If it's post-election.
Now that's true. This is an interesting thing, because there's not a law about this, but the DOJ certainly has a policy that they are not going to take any steps and that may affect an election within 60 days of that election, which we are in that 60-day zone now. And it's not a law or a regulation. It's just what they regard as a long-standing policy that they try to respect, that they're not going to take steps that they're not going to take steps that may impact an election. And clearly sentencing him could impact an election. That's not really incumbent upon individual states like the state of New York, but it is just it's a widely regarded policy. And I was interested to see whether whether he was going to push it back and accede to Donald Trump's request that it get pushed back until after the election. And it's the right call. It really is the right call.
Yes, it absolutely is the right call in every way, really. Even though, again, it'll be really crazy because, okay, let's say Trump is elected and then he's sentenced to prison. And so then where's he going to swear in? No, I'm
But
just
even-
saying it's bonkers. It's
Even
all
sentencing
bonkers.
him to prison is ridiculous for this. Like, really, you're talking about it's again, but it's New York. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Anyway, it's wild. Joe, what do you have coming up?
I have an election coming up on November 5th.
Really?
Next week on Tuesday, I plan on having extended coverage of the most anticipated debate since Lincoln Douglas. This is and with two equally phenomenal minds, two equally sharp minds like Lincoln Douglas, we're getting Trump Harris. It's going to be fire, and it is, arguably it's going to be the most significant factor in deciding whether we have feast or famine for the next 4 years, and what the outcome of this election is, because it's very, very clear that when Trump is here, America feasts, and if Kamala comes in here in the Biden administration, there's literally plague, pestilence, famine, drought, and corruption, imprisonment, lawfare, and utter tyranny. So that's what America is deciding on the next couple of months. And this debate, which is coming up Tuesday at 8 p.m., I will be live streaming, and I'll probably start a little early even. And I encourage you all that people say when you watch a live with me, it's really not like watching with anyone else. So check it out, and that's good logic over YouTube and Rumble. And we have a good time, and you'll hear perspectives that you should be hearing.
All right, fantastic. Jumping up to Ron now. Who's muted? He has nothing to say. No.
I got nothing. Yeah, I don't really do anything.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to take your time. And since three-quarters of the show is all about a potential conspiracy with Russians, let me just say I've got another channel. It's called Proven Conspiracies. It has hit 4,000 subscribers as of yesterday in its first 3 weeks, and is monetized now, finally. So
that is
going
not a small deal, folks. That is not a small deal. They actually approved you for monetization already.
In a day.
That's amazing. They spent a month before telling me no on my first thing, and then I'm so happy for you. That's amazing.
Well, thank you, but I am monetized with 3 channels already, so I think that might have faster. Maybe because I didn't have to wait for a card to come in the mail for Google Analytics or AdSense and all that stuff. So in fairness, that
you're
might
a verified
help.
person.
Right. I've already sold my soul to the YouTube algorithm or what have you. But anyway, I hope you guys consider checking it out. Latest video was COINTELPRO, which, by the way, is not that different. We talked about Operation Mockingbird, which is the government influencing the media. COINTELPRO is the government bugging, surveilling, etc. with the media. These are not all made-up stories. These actually happened.
Only the ones Barnes tells are made-up stories.
I'm not going to say that because
he knows I'm kidding. He knows I'm kidding. He's great at taking a joke. Who's better at taking a joke?
That's fair enough. But the whole principle behind the channel is that these are proven. These are things that have been acknowledged. We talk about the church committee, things like that. So, it's been in front of Congress. These are not wild, speculative things. And it is also going to be branching out. Upcoming video is about how the U.S. government poisoned its own people during Prohibition and killed thousands. This is truth. That's coming out on Monday. I will also be covering, other not so wild things, but like the McDonald's McMillions scam, which is interesting, ice cream machines, or the light bulb controversy. So it's not only the government who can conspire. Corporations do a lot of conspiring too, and everything else. So I hope you guys consider checking that out.
You should.
And I'm super, super happy that folks are liking it. And even more importantly, subscribe here. You like this discussion, you like these arguments, you like making the comments, please consider subscribing here below this channel. Maybe we can get to 30,000 before too long. We're at like 28 something. It would be really amazing to get over that. That helps attract this talent who keeps coming back, thankfully. Please do consider it and subscribe to all these folks here. And on that note, Thank you, everyone.